Finley to throw. Over the middle, intercepted. Wolford again. Wolford the other way at the 30, the 40. Wolford to midfield. Miles Wolford with the pick, the heels on the doorstep of an enormous victory. Williams is the running back next to Howe. Play action. Howe will now lob it down the near side. Newsom with a man all over him. Pins the ball against the back of the defender and brings it in. Heels can get a first down at the 3. Howe, one fake to the right. Now he's going to run to the left. Howe at the 5. Takes the shot. Pinballing off the chains for the touchdown. Howe showing the toughness for 6. Mario's down 4, 35-31. May has the shotgun snap. Pressure coming. Rolls to the right. Throws to the end zone. Touchdown! Touchdown, Antoine Green! 16 seconds to go. No flag. Snapping it off the 8-yard line. May pulls it right for over the front. Now he's going to throw it and score! Throws it to Payson in the end zone for the touchdown. They are going to play through a left-handed. Was rolling out on the run and threw it left-handed. Bernard fields it at the 26. Heading to the far side. Gio at the 35. Gio, he's at the 50. No, he's not. Yes, he is. Gio, he's going to take it for a touchdown. Are you kidding me?
What's going on, guys? Welcome into another edition of the Heel Tough Blog podcast. I'm your host, Josh Marlowe, here with you tonight. Anthony is okay. Everything is fine. We're just doing a new feature, kind of my passion project. If you're familiar with the Four Corners podcast, when we do basketball stuff, you've noticed the last 2 years I've added recapping Hubert Davis press conferences to was part of the content that we bring you guys, where I recap, bring you some sound bites when he meets with the media before a big game. We thought we'd bring that to the football side of things with Bill Belichick entering his first year as Carolina's head coach. And, you know, while he does have his Belichickian moments where he doesn't say or answer questions, he does usually give some interesting tidbits in the pressers that we'd like to bring to you, let you get my thoughts and my reaction to it. So this will be a new weekly feature that'll be coming to you every week, in addition to the previews, the recaps, and whatever guests that Anthony lines up for you guys during the season. This will probably come your way normally on either Tuesday night or Wednesday, just depending on when Coach meets with the media, but be on the lookout for this. I'm excited about this. I wanted to get more involved on the football side of things from the podcasting perspective, and so this is something that I thought of, and I'm pretty excited to be doing this with you guys for the upcoming football season. And so without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the pre-TCU press conference that Coach held on Wednesday. It was a big media day for Belichick because he met with the media. Then, of course, he made his first appearance on Carolina Football Live. And so he held about an 18-minute session with the local media on Wednesday at the Kenan Football Center. And the first big news, the first big piece of information that came out of it was when he, of course, named Gio Lopez as QB1 of the Tar Heels.
Gio's made a ton of progress. We've evaluated things through training camp, and as now we get ready for TCU, he'll be our starting quarterback. So we'll give him the majority of the reps in practice, and make sure that we give him as much preparation as possible. But everybody needs to be ready to go. I feel very comfortable with him and what he's doing. But he'll get better as we go forward because we have a lot of practices in front of us, a lot of games in front of us, and we'll all learn a lot from those. So, I think he's ready, but I think he'll be, like everybody, more ready as we go forward.
All right, so we talked about this, of course, earlier in the week when he was named the starter back on Wednesday. If you missed that edition of the shows, go back wherever you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, or if you want to watch us talk about it on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube. But this was really the culmination of what the expectation was when Carolina brought Gio Lopez in back in during the spring transfer window. We know the financial investment and commitment Carolina made to Gio. That number reported to be 2 years, a little over $4 million. But we talked about how Carolina, Belichick, while they're trying to establish this new culture, wasn't just going to give him the job. He had to go out there and earn it. And, I'm happy that Max Johnson was even in a position to push Gio and make him have to earn that spot after that devastating injury last year in the opener against Minnesota. Bryce Baker just not ready to run a football team yet. Big reason why I think Carolina went and got back into the portal in the spring was just maybe they felt like Bryce was not ready to go. And so you're bringing in a player that a lot of production at South Alabama, a lot of upside, and I think is going to be a natural fit for Freddie Kitchens' offense, one that I think is going to be a little bit more diplomatic than what maybe you're used to seeing, one that's going to, I think, utilize his legs. They're going to want to push the football down the field. He throws a pretty deep ball. You're going to have to get receivers to get separation, whether it's Chris Culliver, Jordan Shipp, whoever, to get down the field and get open. But, I think Gio is really poised to make this leap and this adjustment from the Power or the Group of Five conference level to the Power Four conference level. There will be an adjustment period. The speed of the game will be faster than what he's used to. The physicality will be different than what he's used to, but it really comes down to, can you play or can you not play? I think Gio Lopez can play quarterback and play it at a high level. And hopefully that starts in a big way on Monday night. The big thing to remember with him is that what you see from him against TCU will not be a finished product. By the time we get to Clemson, he'll be a better quarterback. By the time we go to Syracuse, he'll be a better quarterback. By the time we finish the season against Duke and NC State, he'll be a better quarterback. And with 2 years or really 3 years of eligibility left, he could really be the future and the face of this program under Bill Belichick as they try to establish a foundation this year and really maybe look at 2026 as the year for them to contend for not only an ACC championship, but maybe a spot in what could be an expanded college football playoff. The second piece of audio we'll bring from you, I thought this was an interesting question. Of course, with all of Belichick's ties to the NFL, a big difference from the NFL game and the college game is you have a preseason. It used to be 4 games. It's now down to 3 games. It'll be probably down to 2 games before we know it. And so without having a preseason, something I'm an advocate for, I think the college game needs it with where the game is right now, with how these rosters flip so much with the transfer portal. He was asked what kind of feel he has for his team going into the opener on Monday night.
Opening day is always opening day. I don't care where it is. And if you look at the NFL in the preseason games, I'd say the average playing time for the veteran players is around 10%. So not very many snaps. We've said 0 snaps. So we'll see what happens there. But for us, it's just a process. It's preparation, it's practice, it's rest, recovery, and build on yesterday and do it again. And so that's where we're at now. We're very specifically geared towards TCU, but each day is its own day of preparation, and there's really no looking back. We have things to do in the succeeding days, so we need to make the most out every day, and we'll see what happens Monday night.
I do think with the way that they've ran this camp, he probably has a better feel than maybe, let's say, if Mac Brown had brought in 70 new players. I do think that just because he's not telling you where he is, I think him and his staff have a good gauge of where they're at. Obviously, there's still going to be rooms for tons of improvement and development as the season moves along. But I think it's something that you're seeing as we're in the first weekend of the college football season. It's been some sloppy football. You go back to week 0 and the Farmageddon between 2 ranked teams, between Kansas State and Iowa State. It really took them deep into the third quarter, really into the fourth quarter, for either offense to find some rhythm. You saw what happened with Boise State last night, getting embarrassed on the road at South Florida. NC State and ECU was a close game, but it wasn't a pretty game. And you look at some of the games so far tonight. Georgia Tech, Colorado's had some ugly moments. Same thing for what we've seen between Auburn and Baylor. They're both in the first half of those respective games. But I do think Belichick does have a better feel for where his team is at than obviously he's being led on, and obviously than what we know right now. There is so much unknown, and that does go for the coaching staff as well. there's going to be a lot that they're going to learn throughout the 4 quarters, throughout the 60 minutes, the 3.5+ hours it'll take to play this game on Monday night. But I do think that they're in as good a spot as they could have been. Maybe some of those injuries on the interior offensive line hurt a little bit more than what they're leading on to, but I think they feel confident that they can not only win the game but be competitive and really get this season off to a strong start. I've said this, and I'll kind of reiterate it right now. If Belichick does stick in the college game, and I'm a believer that he's going to be here for the duration of that contract, I do think once he feels comfortable using his voice and his platform, he will push for college football to adapt or adopt some sort of a preseason calendar. The sport is basically 365 days as it is. The spring games have become less and less important. And Carolina is a big example of that, of what they did this past year. I think there's an interest and a demand from us, the fan, the consumer, that if you're telling me Carolina is going to play, whether it's a power conference opponent or a group of 5 opponent, but I could go watch that game in early August to get a glimpse of where my team's at, I'd invest the money. I'd drive the 2.5 hours to Chapel Hill and watch that game. And so I do think that if Belichick does stick into the college game, you'll see him maybe use his platform to advocate for a preseason to come to college football sooner rather than later. One thing we've talked a lot about in terms of the big difference in culture and foundation that's being established is that the team that we see take the field on Monday night may not be the same field we see take the team on Saturday against Charlotte. Maybe it's not the same team you see against Clemson in October or Duke in November. And Bill Belichick admitted that the evaluation process is not over now that training camp is over. Players will still be evaluated, and playing time will still be dictated by what they do in practice leading up to the game, and then of course how they perform on the field on Saturdays, or in this case on Monday.
When I look back at my time in the NFL, that month of September, those first 4 weeks were still kind of getting a feel for how things were going to work out with your team, how quickly some of the younger players develop, and what the chemistry is between certain players that play together as they get more time. So we'll see how all that goes. Certainly there's some specific game planning that's involved. So what we play against one team this week might be different than what we do next week schematically. But putting all that aside, we'll see how players develop and how they play. And the players who play against TCU have earned that play time, and the players that will have less play time will have an opportunity to take advantage of the play time they get, whether it be in practice or in a game, and change their status.
I thought what was a real interesting answer that he gave was that with the rotations that they're going to deploy, and I do think Carolina is going to be much more aware of that, is that, we may find out that these 2 guys work better together than these 2 set of guys do, whether it's up front, whether it's at the linebacker spot, or maybe back there in the secondary. Communication is going to be a big thing. I think the players that talk more, that communicate the most, will get more playing time as the season does move along. But I do think that's something that's got to be encouraging if you're a Carolina football fan, is that what you see on Monday night will not be a finished product. I think you will see guys emerge as the season moves along, and that quite simply did not happen under Mac Brown, not to the way that it should have, given the way that he was recruiting and bringing in top 25 talent year after year, but you never really saw in-season growth, in-season development. And the best teams in the country, the ones that compete for championships, the ones that compete for playoff spots, you have internal development during the season. And I think that's something that this staff, with all of the NFL coaching pedigree, will be able to unlock, because they're going to be making it a point of emphasis to make sure they're getting these guys in to get a look at them. It also would help if Carolina could blow out an opponent or 2 here in the early parts of the season, like a Charlotte team that's down 17-3 to App, like a Richmond squad coming up from the FCS. You got Central Florida in Week 4. They won by 7 points last night against a group of 5 school. That's probably a game that Carolina should win, and win comfortably. The best way to develop talent is to be able to get it on the football field and evaluate it. And so is that going to happen on Monday against TCU? Probably not. But if it can happen during the season, I think that could really be a big benefit for Carolina as they make their way through this 2025 campaign. Just a few more quotes from Bill Belichick's press conference, and then we will get out here, let you get back to watching your Friday night football. Speaking of the Horned Frog, speaking of TCU, the head coach of the Tar Heels broke down what they do so well offensively on tape.
The number of explosive plays they get is impressive offensively. They can throw the ball down the field, go routes, post routes, seams, things like that. They also can throw the ball on some intermediate type throws, like slants and quick in cuts, things like that. And then they have plays behind the line of scrimmage, screens and hitches and so forth. They make a lot of yardage on with the ball when the receivers get the ball in their hands. They're very good after the catch. Now some of those guys are gone, but they also brought in some explosive players that we've seen. So we'll see how that goes. But it's a good catch and run team. If you let them throw it in front, you've got to do a good job of tackling, and they do a good job throwing the ball over the top, and they also have a good intermediate game. So they really make you defend, all the blades of grass on the field, the sideline to sideline, and the line of scrimmage to 50 yards down the field. So you've got a lot to defend, and they do a good job of attacking all of it. And where you're light, that's where they want to throw, and where you're heavy, they go somewhere else. So they're a tough offensive matchup against.
And we talked about it, last night when we officially previewed the game. Josh Hoover is one of the best quarterbacks in the country that maybe not everyone is aware of. He set the single season passing yard record last year for that TCU program. And they have really produced a lot of great quarterbacks really since Andy Dalton. You had Boykin, then you had Max Duggan, who of course took them to the national championship game. Now you've got Hoover, who is a skilled passer. They want to get the ball out of his hands. They're gonna stretch Carolina as far as they can, but they're gonna push the football down the field. And so Carolina's defensive line has to win up front. They've got to generate pressure on the quarterback. They've also got to make sure they tackle well in space because they're going to be guys that get put in an island. Can Carolina make those plays? Well, if they can make those plays, I think it goes a long way to them winning the ball game. If it's kind of more what we're used to seeing, where Carolina defenders get put in space that can't make tackles, this offense will move the football up and down the field and put up its fair share of points and yards. And because they're not going to be afraid to just stand back there and throw it. They struggled to run the ball at times a year ago. And if that's happening on Monday, they trust their quarterback to win the game with his arm. And so, it's a real fun offense to watch if you love watching high-level offensive football. Sonny Dykes, one of the more innovative offensive minds in the game. You've got Kendall Briles there, the play caller, the son of Art Briles. You know what he did at Baylor back in the 2010s. And so it's not that same type of offense, but a lot of the same schemes and concepts you'll see on the field on Monday night. So Carolina's defense, that is revamped and has a brand new look and feel with the arrival of Steve Belichick as the defensive coordinator, some big-time transfers, and Thaddeus Dixon and Kamori House in that back seven. We'll learn a lot about that group on Monday night, going up against what you would probably argue is the second-best offense they'll play this regular season, that behind of the Clemson Tigers. All right, two more quotes for you to go before we will get out of here. Let's now turn our attention to Carolina's offense. And, Freddie Kitchens, who has been on staff the past handful of years, served as the interim coach for the bowl game, stays on with Belichick. He is now the offensive coordinator for Carolina. And Belichick talked about what Freddie Kitchens brings to Carolina's offense.
He brings a toughness to the offense. And so I think that's a good thing. And, he and Coach Friend played together at Alabama, so there's a great relationship between, the offensive line and the coordinator. So that's always an important part of the offense, to have that, mesh like, we had at New England with Josh McDaniels and Vontae Scarnecchia. And that's an important, dynamic offensively. So, Freddie's been great to work with, and I've really enjoyed being with him, but also, his expertise from the things that he's brought from Cleveland or previous to that from, when he was at Arizona with the Cardinals for a decade, plus some of the experiences in college, whether it be, South Carolina or here in the last couple of years, especially here because he is familiar with the program and some of the things that have happened here the last couple of years that help us either move faster or move slower with some of the things that we're trying to do.
All right. So I think the big thing that stood out to me from that answer was the first word that Belichick used to describe Freddie Kitchens. And that's tough. And toughness will be instilled in the offense. And that was, you see some teams that still run no huddle spread offense that's very finesse and hasn't adapted to the physicality that is still demanded at this level. You've seen some offenses that run, no huddle, that run a spread concept. They have adapted and they are tough. They're rugged up front where they can win in pass pro, they can win in the run blocks, but they're physical at the point of attack with their tight ends, with their wide receivers, with their running backs. I don't know how explosive this Carolina offense is going to be. I do expect it to be an offense that is much more physical. That's going to be tough in between the tackles. That's going to be tough at the line of scrimmage. You got a quarterback that's not going to be easy to take down. And so this offense is going to be a work in progress because it's going to change from week to week. It'll have a different look and a different feel depending on the opponent. But if they can hang their hat on going into every game, that they know they're going to be the more physical bunch. They're going to be the physical group as opposed to the defense wearing them down. I think that'll go a long way for this Carolina offense, for Freddie Kitchens in his first year as a play caller at the college level. I think this team is built to want to run the football. I think you're going to see that in a big way on Monday night. But, the best teams that run the ball are physical teams. They're tough teams. He spent some time in that AFC North. You can't win in that division unless you're a tough football team. I think he's going to try to instill that same toughness here at the college level here with Carolina. One last quote for you guys, and we will get out of here. This has nothing to do with the TCU game in particular, but something that we've kind of seen take place since Belichick and Michael Lombardi arrived back on campus in last December is that they've embraced the history and the tradition of Carolina football. And Belichick talked about why that's important to him on Wednesday.
Michael and I have talked a lot about bringing the tradition back in North Carolina and, doing some things that historically were very important in the school's football history that we want to recognize and highlight. So,
yeah, I mean, I cannot tell you how much I love that. Mac Brown started a new tradition where they lit the bell tower after wins. I don't know if that will continue into the Belichick reign. I hope it does. I always thought it was cool as someone that this year is once again a season ticket holder. When you're leaving Keenan after a win, seeing that bell tower lit up in Carolina blue was always a fun ordeal. You got the old well walk coming back, something that Anthony and I used to love attending. We'll probably try to make sure we can be there for that first one on Monday afternoon against TCU. But I really like that because it's just a great way for us to kind of, cheer on them, cheer the team on as they make their way into the stadium to go get ready for the contest. But it goes deeper than that. They've got pictures of the 3 Hall of Famers that the program has produced. They're downstairs in the office of Bill Belichick. We know that they ordered uniforms from the 1980s when Lawrence Taylor was on campus. We know the connection that coach has to LT. And also the last time Lawrence Taylor suited up in Carolina blue, they won an ACC championship and was one of the best teams in the country. And so, look, for many of us that are diehard Carolina football fans, there isn't a lot of history and tradition and pageantry to maybe write home about because they haven't won a conference title in over 40 years. But this program that has been deemed a sleeping giant has accomplished a lot and has produced a lot. And there's some stuff here that maybe, I've forgotten, you've forgotten that they're going to bring back to life in a big way and really honor what all this football program has done. Because for Belichick, when, his dad was an assistant here, football was king on campus. Basketball had not yet become the it thing yet on campus in Chapel Hill. And so for Bill, he can kind of remember when Carolina football was a bigger deal than maybe it is to some people right now. He wants to bring that back. And the best way to do that is by winning. But if you can remind people of your past and all the great things that this program has done, it will, increase the interest and the commitment level from a fan base that I think is starving for a winner to support. If this team wins, that stadium will be packed and it'll be loud 6 Saturdays this year. If not, I cannot guarantee that's going to be the case. And I think Belichick is aware of that. And so I think while he's trying to establish himself at the college level, his program at the college level, he'll kind of feed into the nostalgia that he's kind of been reminded of since he took over as the head coach. And I, for one, as someone that really values that no matter which team, no matter which sport it is that I support, I'm uber excited to see what that looks like. Cannot wait to see those 1980s uniforms in whatever capacity that it is, whether it's just the helmet. I hope it's the jersey as well. But I'm pretty excited that you've seen him kind of lean into that. He's a historian of the game, and that stands out when he talked about TCU. He talked about their history for the first 3 minutes of the presser. He's also talked about here at Carolina. That's an important thing to him to kind of reestablish and bring back to the forefront for the program. And so I think that'll be a fun thing to watch this season as the season does unfold. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this edition of the podcast, guys. Like I said, a new feature for the football season. A lot of news come your way in the last day or so. A new background for the streams on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. A new intro for the 2025 season. And now this feature will be new every week, as I will, it'll just be me, but I'll get on here, bring you the best sound bites from Bill Belichick's press conference that respective week, and give my thoughts and reaction to it. In the meantime, we will direct you guys to the website. That's HeelToughBlog.com. Today, Anthony put up his projected depth chart for the season opener. Obviously, Carolina has not released one. They will have to release an injury report, so we'll have a sort of a feel of where this roster stands at going into the Monday opener. But this is what Anthony projected with some of the intel he's been told, what he's read, what he's gathered from Carolina training camp. Game preview will be up this weekend as well, so be on the lookout for that. An even deeper dive than what we do on the audio platform. So you're going to want to make sure you read that. It's the best preview that there is from all the Tar Heel communities that'll have you ready for Monday night's game against TCU. So that's the main thing driving the website. Basketball is taking a seat back, rightfully so. If anything major happens this weekend, and there is potential for that with some big-time recruits, obviously we'll be here to react to it. But as long as it stays quiet and Carolina football can be the primary focal point, that is what this website will be about going through the weekend and into the game on Monday, with the recap to be posted on Tuesday. As for the podcast, you guys know where to find the Heel Tough Blog podcast. Everywhere you find your podcast, just search the Heel Tough Blog podcast and it'll pop up. There, we encourage you guys to rate, review, and subscribe. That's for the audio platforms. Same thing for the video. We stream live on Facebook, on YouTube, and at my personal Twitter account at HTB_Josh. So if you haven't already done so, go to the Facebook page, give it a like, go to the YouTube channel, give that a follow me on Twitter, because whenever we go live, it'll notify you. And you can jump in and hang out with myself or with Anthony and I here talking Carolina football. So make sure you do that, guys, because we've got it's going to be a big season. It's going to be a fun season. We got a lot of content in store for you guys. We don't want you to miss any of the best coverage, wall-to-wall coverage of Carolina football. With that, guys, it is going to wrap up this edition of the show. I do want to thank you guys for watching and listening. And as always, go Tar Heels.